have coffee, and you know what that means? It's time for a video. Good morning YouTube! Today I am doing my January wrap up. So somehow I have managed to read 10 books in a month. I'm not quite sure how, but I've done it. So I didn't exactly stick to my TBR as planned. I mean, I got a whole bunch of new books and I kind of couldn't wait to read them, so I started off reading through my TBR. I think I got like 3 or 4 books into it and then I just abandoned it completely. So first up I read How I Found You by Gabriella Lepore. It follows a girl called Rose who has to go and stay with her uncle and her aunt because her parents are away, and then 2 strangers come around that happen to be brothers, Oscar and Kaya. They have this big secret that they are witches and they're here to fulfill some kind of prophecy that involves Rose, and she has no idea about it, so it's all about her trying to kind of find out what on earth is going on and make heads nor tails of it. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to give too much away about this one because I feel like you really do just need to read it. It was such a gripping read. I actually read this entire book on the train home from receiving it, so that is how good it was. I did not put it down once, except for to change trains, and even then I had my head just buried in a book. So yeah, I completely recommend this. So next up is another Gabriella Lepore novel. This time it's Secrets in Phoenix, and I think I preferred this one to How I Found You actually. I really enjoyed it. It has that whole boarding school theme through it. It follows Sophie and her 2 twin brothers as they move to Phoenix after losing their parents, and they get to stay with their great aunt Ness, who is just amazing, literally, and they go to a boarding school. But there is one big twist here. Sophie, our sort of main character, is the only girl in an entire boarding school of boys. How? How? Like, if that was me, I would hate it so much. That would be so strange. Imagine just going to all of your classes and there are nobody but boys. It would be so strange, so strange. Anyway, it's set in this really picturesque town of Phoenix, and it's got witches, it's got magic, it's got phoenixes, it's incredible. I've never read anything about phoenixes before, especially the way they are represented in this book, but I really enjoyed it. Plus there is a sequel coming, and oh my goodness, I can't wait to get my hands on the sequel because I want to go back to Phoenix. Literally, the way this ends, you want more. You definitely want more. Okay, so 3 or 4 of these books that I read weren't actually sort of ones that I particularly wanted to read, but I had to read them for university as I was writing essays on them. So I'm not going to talk too much about them because I'm not gonna lie, I didn't particularly like them. But I read The Revenger's Tragedy by Thomas Middleton, The Duchess of Malfi by John Webster, and by Euripides I read Electra. I only read one of the plays in this sort of binder. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of okay. They're very heavy going. They're very sort of, because of the way they're written, because they're so old, they're very hard to kind of whiz through, and I had to pay a lot of attention and underline quotes, which I hate because I hate writing in books. I just can't stand it. Unless it's somebody signing a book, you just don't go there. You don't go there. So yeah, I think of the 3, my favourite was probably The Revenger's Tragedy actually. It was really kind of dramatic and everybody had a name based on their persona. So you had like Virtuoso or something and he was virtuous and that kind of thing. But yeah, so not really too much to say about these as I didn't want to read them per se. But I did. So next up I read Heir of Fire by Sarah J Maas. This is the 3rd book in the Throne of Glass series. I'm itching to get my hands on book 4. Literally, I finished this one and I regretted not having book 4 so much that I went out to Waterstones and they didn't have book 4. So gutted, so I still need to pick that up, but I completely loved this. I mean, I don't want to give spoilers as it is the 3rd in a series, but I'm pretty sure by now everybody knows about Throne of Glass. It follows an assassin as she's kind of trying to find her way in the world. She has, there is magic, there are fae, there are just monsters. It's so good. It's quickly becoming one of my favourite series all time, I do believe. So yeah, definitely looking forward to getting book 4. I've also got the Assassin's Blade, the bind-up of novellas, that I really want to get stuck into as well, but I think I'm going to wait until I finish the entire series so I don't kind of confuse myself from where I've left off. The fourth book that I had to read for university was Jane Eyre. I actually really enjoyed this one because I do love a lot of classics and Charlotte Bronte is pretty awesome. I also watched the movie for this as well as reading it just to kind of give me a bigger insight for my essay, as I literally had to write I think like 2,500 words on Jane Eyre alone. So yeah, it's a classic. I mean, I think it's one of those things again where everybody kind of is aware of what it's about. So next up I read Kristin Keshaw's Graceling. I didn't realise this was actually a series when I picked this one up. I was recommended it by a few people, especially on BookTube and Instagram, and I'd been looking to pick it up for ages but I just hadn't, and now I really, it's like Heir of Fire. I went to go get the sequel and I couldn't find it anywhere, so I'm still dying to jump back into this world. But oh my goodness, I really loved this one. It's again, it reminds me a lot of the Game of Thrones series. Game of Thrones? Throne of Glass. Oh my god, there are too many thrones. Too many thrones. This reminds me of the Throne of Glass series. So it's in a world where people are graced with certain abilities. Our protagonist is graced with killing. And that's what kind of reminds me of the Throne of Glass series, as it is kind of like she's an assassin. She's kind of sent out to do different tasks for her uncle the king, and of course they are all pretty darn brutal. So I definitely want to pick up the next book in this series, but this one, you fall in love with the world and the characters so much, so much. I feel like so much happens in a short space of time as well though. So I think it took me a bit longer than I expected to read it just because I didn't want to miss any of the details, as Kristin Keshaw has this incredibly picturesque writing style, so you really do feel like you are there in that world, and it's painted so beautifully. I think this is a place that, like, if we could visit fictional lands, I would really want to go here. So it's all about Katza trying to kind of rebel against her grace in a sense. She doesn't want to kill anymore and she wants to help people, and there are a bunch of really interesting characters that appear along the way to help her on that journey. And just Poe, there is a character called Poe, and I don't know if this is just me, but I did immediately think of the Teletubbies, not gonna lie. But yeah, Poe is the most adorable character. He's such a sweet guy, and him and Katza, they're just so perfectly matched, I think. And you need to read this. You definitely need to read this. So up next I read Gabriel and the Swallows. I read this in ebook format and put a review on Goodreads. I really enjoyed this. I've not read anything by Esther Del Seno before, however this beautiful whimsical tale is again another one of these authors who is able to paint such a beautiful immersive world that you don't want to put it down. I think I read the entire novel on a train ride, the entire novel, and I didn't put it down once. It's so beautiful. I don't think I've read anything like it before. Volatile is just the most unique character you will probably have come across in a long time. I completely recommend this. They're actually running a pre-order campaign at the moment. I'll put information in the description, but they're running a pre-order campaign where if you pre-order it you get this beautiful artwork signed by Esther Del Seno herself. So I completely recommend pre-ordering it because it is not going to be a mistake. First book that I read this year, and it is the perfect way to start off a year of reading. So the last book that I read this month is The Novice by Taran Matharu. I absolutely loved this book. Like, I don't think I've loved a book this much in a long time. The sequel is coming out in May as well, and I am counting down the days. So this is like Pokemon meets Harry Potter meets, like, I don't even know, just everything good. It's high fantasy in that it's in a whole other world where some people have the ability to summon demons to be kind of their Pokemon, pretty much. They fight for them, they battle, there's magic, there's orcs, there's so much good stuff. There's elves in it as well. I completely recommend this more than I think anything else on my list today, purely because I am addicted to this world and I want the sequel. I've got the hardback and I'm actually considering going out and getting the paperback version because at the back it has this demonology section which tells you all about all the demons that you can summon, and there are drawings and I really want to know what they all look like from Turan's kind of point of view. I actually did a whole video on this the day after I read it, so I'll link that in the description as well so you can go check it out if you want to read more about this, but it is so good. So yeah, that is everything that I read in January. I had a really good reading month actually. I didn't expect to read as many books as I did. I think partly because I hadn't gone back to university yet. I read a lot more than I normally would, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to continue that much in February. Let me know in the comments if you read any of these books and we can chat about them, because I am seriously so hyped up from some of these books that I just want people to talk to and fangirl over all of the amazing characters with. So yeah, I will see you next time. Bye!